Hello everyone and welcome to yet another live coding and chill. I'm your host Johnny and I hope you're having amazing weeks. I hope you're hungry because today we're tackling hamburger menus. I hope you're hungry for some good UX, thirsty for knowledge, all that good stuff, and I will switch straight to the desktop view so I can show what we'll be doing today. You may remember that in previous live streams, maybe you were there, we were building up this portfolio project. And because I want to keep things realistic, I kept saying that I'm not going to create a hamburger menu just yet because there wasn't a use case. Usually for great UX, you want your users to be clicking as little as possible. They should only be clicking into the things that lead to leads and conversions and that sort of thing. So you won't want to hide like your important links anywhere, much less inside a menu. And that's why I resisted adding something like this, but turns out because we also did internationalization, at some point, if there is a breakpoint where you have like the Greek word for contact and the language toggle, at some point it would be touching the person's name, the person we're doing the portfolio for. And for that, it turns out we do indeed need a nice little hamburger menu to hide some of the least important links there. And if we're gonna need a side nav or something like that, at least let's make a fun animation that entices people to click. They see some whimsy, some fun on our website and they like it even more. This is live, you can go there and click around yourself as always. But today we also have another app that you'll be able to click around in. It's in my enhanced super font view for you to be able to read my code. It's a bit too big, but we will be building up a dedicated website where you can click around all the various hamburger menus we're going to be creating today. So this is like the huge view of the hamburger menu animating like so. It's based on a video I did ages ago, a long time ago, which is based on an article by Michael. And people were asking, since this is like Svelte 3, Svelte 4 with the old dollar style syntax, how do you do this with the new way to manage state, with runes? How do you do this in Svelte 5? But we'll do it in a vanilla HTML and CSS way, a very accessible way first, and then show how to do it with Svelte 5 in order for you to be able to style these however you want, use Svelte 5 if you want, use React, Vue, whatever else, whatever framework is popular 30 years from now when you're watching this, you will be able to use it because we'll go deep into the fundamentals and it's not going to be that intimidating. We'll demystify as always what is really happening here and you'll be able to be more flexible and roll with the punches in the future and the specs that people want. We will be doing a more classic like collapsible menu first, where you click the toggle on the top of the website and then it actually expands the header because that's fun, but you can do anything. That's going to be the point. We will start by doing this cool animation, swivelly animation as well, and then see how we're going to use things like labels and inputs to keep this vanilla HTML and CSS if you want. So that's the idea, that's the agenda of the day. As always, let me know in the chat if this is interesting to you, if you'd like to see something else, if you have questions about what we're doing or what we'll be doing next. Let me know what you're working on. I always get inspired and do related streams if I think I can impart some knowledge or if it's something that just sparks my interest. Sometimes I spend the weekend looking into it and then I think I find something cool or learn something and then next stream may be all about that. And again, people have asked for this, people have asked for things like sidebars and drawers and all of those things that you find in more complicated apps. But even in a portfolio, turns out you may want something like that. You may want a hamburger menu. There are links in the description to all of these things that you can click out yourself, as well as the code that we'll be ending up with in the end. There is a link to the old video that I have that is still good. It just uses like the Svelte 3.4 way to do state stuff. Still, you may be able to work it out, but if you listen to this stream, I'm sure you will. And a link, of course, to Mikhail's article as well, which is unfortunately still in Medium, which benefits no one but Medium itself. Sadly, we didn't know that when we started writing articles there. All right, shots fired, Medium cuts and strays, no need for that. We'll also be using Daisy UI because they do actually, much like Tailwind itself, Daisy UI, which adds some composed classes onto Tailwind, has great documentation and great examples. So this is a great place to go and just click around the various components that they have and then look into the HTML and see, oh, how do they achieve this? In this case, they achieve it with the details HTML component and a summary class, but it's not animatable, and they do have the note of why this is not able to be animated, like other ways to do this. Anyway, we'll slowly build up on all of those things we've talked about. What we're doing today. Hamburgers are super fun. I said again, keep your important links within one click, like one click removed from your customers. But if you need to have a menu, and even for simpler apps, you will need to have some hidden link somewhere, then do something fun. Do like a little animation like this. So that's what we'll be building up first, and demystifying SVGs while we're at it. So code goes here, and I'll switch to the desktop view. For the first time ever, I'm gonna have the preview on the left and the Visual Studio Code on the right. So we'll see how that goes. It's gonna be messing with my brain, and you can see the problem that we'll be fixing. In this case, we do have like quite a few important links in the header up above, up here. It looks fine. We develop like this. It's like, this is golden. This is amazing. You deploy, your client checks on their phone because that's what people use to go to websites nowadays. And it actually looks much more squished. Like they cannot see all of the links. They cannot even click them. They are underneath there. And that's not good. That's unworkable. We need to do something to resolve this. One of the ways would be fewer links. Put the links in a different place, put them in the footer or something, keep just a couple, like make the name of the website smaller, just have a favicon or the app logo there, not the full name. There are some tricks to get around from having to have a hamburger menu, as we said, but today we'll learn how to give the option of actually having a hamburger menu. And we'll be doing it first with vanilla HTML CSS, then we'll be doing it with a Daisy UI collapsible, and then with a drawer, then finally Svelte 5 with runes. And we'll be talking about other ways to do it as well with Svelte, using libraries such as Melt UI or ShadCN, which I will always call Shadowken, because it sounds cooler. But yeah, this is the main idea. How do we make this happen? So a great way to have some lines transform into some other lines is to use SVGs. So let's demystify SVGs as well. And in the previous stream, we went through how we can create SVGs as Svelte components. Svelte, I like writing UI templating in Svelte because it looks like HTML, and it's therefore easier to do demos about HTML and CSS when I'm writing Svelte versus React, which is JSX, which kind of looks like HTML, but not really. So I am in the vanilla example, and I am in this page, and let's say that I want like a burger.svelte here, or animated burger even. Just collocate this component with modern Svelte. And I will just say hello here. Even have burger emoji, why not? And then in my page, let's just put the burger here, so we can see this component. With Svelte, how do we turn this into an SVG? We can just say SVG here, and and then we can start writing some instructions. The things with an SVG is that sometimes you just go to a website, you download your SVG, you go to Figma, your designer has designed something, you download it, you put it in your app. We've shown how you can work with SVGs, but you don't really know how they work. So it stands for Scalable Vector Graphics. I'm terrible at drawing, but I'm decent at doing vector graphics because they're more like mathematical instructions. So I can go to Illustrator and say, this line needs to be straight, this needs to have this sort of curve, like this needs to start this thick and then start getting trailing off to thinner. It's easier for me to do it with mathematical instructions, and it's much easier for the browser. That's why usually an SVG will have will be less bytes than a big PNG image, because you can just tell the computer, the browser, render this line, and it can go on forever. And that's why it's also infinitely scalable, because the browser just knows the viewport it's trying to work with. This is the area that you'll be playing with, and you just need to get a line from here to there. And it knows how to, if the viewport is 10 times the size, it will just follow the instruction 10 times longer. So very efficient for things like icons, and that's why we're using them here. And it's very easy to animate them as well, because we will say this line, which was straight, rotated like 50%. We'll be doing tricks like that. So we need to specify the view box and say how big is the area, the canvas that you want me to be playing around here in. And we say that we start from like top left, and your bottom right is going to be this. So 100 by 100 SVG here. And we can say that we don't want to fill. I wonder if we just say fill red, I suppose. We may need like some width here. Let's say that we want the width to be like 32. We'll do this later. Let's do it one by one. So no fill. Actually, we'll just be doing strokes because we'll be doing the lines. And let's say that the stroke is going to be current color. So whatever color the text is, let's make it be that. So we can more easily change it. Like if you hover, if you want another color, if you make it behave like text behaves, like your links behave, then it's easier. So I use current color all the time. And then in here is where we start giving out the instructions. So this is where we'll be saying that I want the browser to draw a path, and then the instructions are going to be like move from move 30x 33y and keep going horizontally h for like 40. And that's the path that we want. And that immediately gives us a line, which is dynamically big because we are kind of stretching it in the layout here. So it follows that if we do the same thing and we tell the browser to move more, to move further down, then it's going to create another line. And if we have another one, then it's going to create another line, and we can do this forever and keep adding like lines, etc. But that's what SVGs are. That's mathematical instructions. Like there are some things that you may want to learn that, oh, M means move, or H means horizontal, or C means curve, or something like that. But if you've been like overwhelmed by SVGs, by all the code that you have in there, it's figure outable. Like you just need to start looking into it. So according to the examples that I have, to make this hamburger have a more nicer spacing, I think I keep adding like 14 or something. Let me double check. I think I keep adding 17. So let's do this. So it has like more pleasant spacing here. And you can see that here, if we said that the stroke should be red, it would be red. If we said it should be blue, it will be blue. But if you say current color, it's easier to do stuff like we're in this example, I guess. So if you said text purple, it's the real thing. 100, then this will be respected here. And usually you will want your icons to match your text like 99% of the time, and if not, then you can start passing in a class in here. So this is the big thing with a burger. For design purposes, we'll also be specifying stroke width and say that we want it thicker. We'll say we want it 5. Now that starts looking like a proper chunky little burger, enticing to click. And again, we will be putting this up at the top. We will be reusing this component, so it's not going to be looking this ridiculous. Maybe we should. We have the collocated header here, so let's just adding it here already. Maybe. So maybe here, let's have a little div with the animated burger and see how that looks, if at all. Yes, we have like too many items here for this to be visible. So maybe, should I be introducing some Svelte here? Not really. I'll be introducing the Svelte stuff later. So 3 lines. That's all there is to the start of a hamburger menu. It's 3 lines. Kind of looks like a burger, like bun, patty, another bun. At the end, we want a cross. We want to look like an X, which you may think it's just going to be 2 lines. One that goes diagonally like this, 2 lines. But how would you animate that? We could be crossfading to different components. It's fine to do it like that. Most people do it like that. But I like the whimsy, I like the fancy thing we're going to be doing today with this animation. But another way people do it, which we'll kind of use, is that the middle line, this one, if you rotate it kind of like 45 degrees, then it can become the X. And then maybe like you can rotate the top one and this one just disappears and then it kind of looks like a neat animation. That's fine, but we're going to do something different. But we are going to say, let's just give these lines names, class names. And we have the top line, we have the middle line, and we have the bottom line. And in Svelte, we can do styles by declaring a style tag. And we are using post CSS to do like some extra like super CSS stuff, modern CSS stuff. As a preprocessor, we're using post CSS. So I'm going to add this explicitly here. And we're going to show that I can say that the middle line, maybe like if I transform it and rotate X 45, for example, is it going to be like a real thing? Rotate Y, rotate Z. It's going to be like one of the rotatey things. Let me double check what I got here. Just rotate, trying to say degrees. Oh yeah, of course, I need to say degrees. So we need to specify 45 degrees here. And you can see it kind of disappearing because it's rotating from its start. It's kind of rotating from here, from its start point. So what we need to say as well is to tell it to transform from the middle, to anchor itself in the middle. And you do that by saying transform origin should be its center. So the moment you do that, then it's gonna just tilt like this. And it's gonna look awesome. This would be 90 degrees, 45 degrees. Looks pretty good, to be honest. So that's the idea of what we'll be doing. I hope that's that kind of makes sense. However, we did say that you could do something like this for the top line as well. So you could say the top line, I wanted to rotate like -45 or something. It kind of flies in here, and then try to figure out the origin where you'd need to make that happen. And then you'll end up with an X somehow, like there will be mathematical instructions where this will be possible. And then like the bottom one, I guess we would be saying that it just becomes invisible in the end. And then you kinda have like the X in the end, and you can kinda animate it, so it looks kinda nice. But we'll do something cooler. We'll do the thing that our friend Mikkel was suggesting in their Medium article. And that is actually having much more complicated lines for the top and bottom lines, and using something called dash array to tell the browser, well, the whole line looks like this, but only so the beginning to that part of the line, and then it will do that cool animation effect that we have here. So this line, you can see it kind of like moving around, like moving from the top and going into the X position. That's because it's actually a bigger line that we're telling the browser only render at the start of it. How do you do that? Well, the instructions to render the bigger line are more complicated. So I do have them not memorized because that'd be crazy. Even I can't do that. But I have them on the side, copy paste. So you'll see that the top line is actually this like squirrely thing. And we're gonna give some mathematical instructions to only show part of it. So indeed, as I said, for the top line, we're gonna be specifying that the stroke dash array is gonna be 4160. These are the magic numbers to only show like from here to here, essentially. Mikkel did the work to actually find what's the place, where to start, where to end, to make this actually work. You can play around with something like that yourself. Mikkel in the article explains how they came about this process and how they did this very cool trick. But that's kind of by the by. We'll be doing the same thing for the bottom class. So we need a complicated path for the bottom one, like this, and you can see it squirrely, kind of like the opposite of the other one. And in this case as well, we're gonna use stroke dash array. But in this case, the magic numbers are not 4160. Well, maybe they are, but for some reason it's 4085. I wonder why. I guess when we do the whole animation, like it's where exactly it ends. And that's by the by. We're not gonna be rotating the middle one just yet. So we start from here, and the hope is if we mess with how much of the stroke we're showing, then this is gonna end up as an X. So let's try to see. Let's try to add the things that we will be adding to the end. There is another property, CSS property, we'll be messing with, and that's the dash offset, which is in pixels. And if you do 64, it kind of ends up like this. And this one kind of ends up like on the same place. So now that we have mostly horizontal line, if we curve the whole thing 45 degrees, then we have an X. And if we counter transform this, then we have a proper X. Hopefully that makes sense, like messing with the CSS like this, but we'll get there. So we only want this to happen when some other situation is true. Let's say on hover, let's say that on hover we want to do the X, like we want to end up on the X. So for the SVG, when we hover on the SVG, let's say, we want the top and the bottom. Top and the bottom ones, do the stroke dash array trick that we showed. Kinda end up on the one line. So if I hover now, I should be getting it. That's offset, sorry. So when I hover, it goes to the end position. And when I hover, I want the whole SVG to actually be transforming and rotating. So 45 degrees. So now you have the X line. So now, if you actually say that the middle line transform rotates minus 90 degrees or 90 degrees, then you end up to the X. So does that make sense? Like the top and the bottom lines join up together in their weird offset, in the weird path that they have that's now visible thanks to the dash offset. And the whole thing turns 45 degrees. So these two lines are one line that's kind of like an X. And this one goes back 45 degrees from this. But because the whole thing has rotated 45 degrees, it goes back to the X position. Hopefully that makes sense. That's the meat of the trick that we're doing here. Kind of neat. But for this to happen in a cool way, we can specify that we want a transition. And it's a good idea to specify a transition duration here. So because we will be using this in quite a few places, this custom properties, CSS properties, CSS variable. If we want to change the duration of the animation, we just change it in one place instead of changing it in like a million places. And what we want to say is that we want the whole SVG to have a transition on the transform for this transition duration. So you can see this thing turning just fine. We want the middle line to also have the same transition, as you can see. This happens to be the same one, a transition on the transform, but it's a different transition for the top and middle ones. For top and middle, so for top and bottom, we actually want the transition to not be on the transform. We're not doing anything on those transforms. We're doing stuff with a dash offset. And instead of is, I guess we can do like an is out or something even more complicated, but is out will do for now. And boom, we have our effect. So the whole SVG turns, it's a transform, and that's why we transition, we have a transition for the transform for the SVG and the middle line. This is the thing we're animating for the whole SVG and the middle line. But the top and bottom lines, they need a transition on the stroke dash offset, because that's how this trick works. We have a bigger line for both the top and the bottom one. We show only part of that line with the stroke dash array property, and we animate the offset to say, all right, instead of showing like this part, show a bit more, and that's how it makes it move like that. And it looks cool, I would say. And now it happens on hover. The next part would be to have it happen when users click, because usually you want people to click or tap or do something like that to end up with an open menu. But I think that's the first stage of how this works. I wonder if I missed anything else. I think that's it. I think that was it. So let's look at the agenda. So we have this, and we have this header here that we want to make more sensible. We want things. We want this, I guess, to do this situation on click instead of just on hover. User clicks, and it gets into this state. And one way to do that, instead of specifying that we want all of this to happen on click, we can turn all of this into an input, a hidden input and a label. So let's see. If we put all of this inside a label, so the SVG, let's put it inside the label and give it an input of type checkbox. It's like if you click it, then it should look as if it's in the open state. We can say all of these instructions are is it an X? Looks like an X position. So when do we want to get there? We could say if the label has an input that's checked, so this is the modern has selector, then I want the SVG to have all of these things. So let's see if that's going to work. Boom. So our CSS says our label component, which is the root at this point, if there is an input checked in there, if the input is checked, then find the SVG, this thing, and apply all of these things. Rotate it all, rotate the middle line, and change the dash offset for the top and bottom lines. So when you do this, it just works. And you don't even need to hit the input because it's all a label, and the label will find the checkbox, the input that is behind it, and will give it activity and toggle it. So it just works. And that means that this can be hidden. This can be not visible. Which we could do, I suppose, just by saying input display none. Don't display this, so user just clicks here and it's open, it's closed, it's all good. Don't have the ugly checkbox, it looks amazing. Sweet. So that's how to do this. Let me double check. Like I don't like the little non-uniformity there. I think you can do like something with the caps. How the caps work, caps of the lines. But that's by the by, we can figure it out later. For now, all I want to do is use this in this header. We've talked about this, so we have the animated burger that we've been designing here. Should we call it like input burger? Input burger? Checkbox burger? Just because we'll be designing quite a few in this app to keep it clear. So in here, maybe I'll take inspiration, like there must be We can wrap it inside a button, like a ghost button from Daisy UI. Yes, I'll take inspiration from what I have in my main header here, just to not waste much time. Just passing in some classes, I guess. Right, so we want our input to get some classes in order to be able to style it better here. And for that, in modern SvelteKit, Svelte 5, you use runes and $props. And we can say that this is this, and we can say that the props actually are HTML or SVG element attributes. SVG attributes from Svelte. Svelte exposes this. That's for better type safety, and then spread them here on the label. So it's actually the label element in our case. Whoops, sorry. I lied. HTML label attributes in this case. And didn't like something. Oh, lab for Labrador. Tried to help, didn't help. Cool. So again, we are getting into Svelte territory. However, you could do the same with vanilla HTML and CSS. Like this is just a way to spread some props in a Svelte component. If this was vanilla CSS and you just literally had your label and SVG here, you would be passing the props that you want. In this case, just passing in a few classes. That's all we want to do. And there are like some button classes we can put in here to make this appear. You don't need to use Tailwind CSS or Daisy UI to just have this have a specified width and an effect on hover. Doesn't really matter. What does matter is this effect here, which looks even nicer. Like you can't notice that the caps are kinda off here. So we have it on the burger, we have it on the header. How do we use it to hide our links? That's the next part. So when this is checked, when this is in the open state, which I guess is the cross state, then we want to expand some parts of the header. I guess that's what we said we'll be doing here. Let's look at my plan and agenda. We are toggling this. We've managed to do this actually. So expand and collapse our header with our animated hamburger. So what we want is to not have all of these on every breakpoint. And I think maybe we'll quickly use container queries here. Is that too complicated? Let me know. It doesn't really matter that much. I have set up Tailwind with container queries here, so we can say that if we are on maybe all these links, if we are, by default, they're hidden. So that hides them. Great. But on LT screens or Excel screens, or maybe 4 Excel screens, then they become inline. I think that's what this menu wants. This is what this menu specifies. Inline flex, actually. So actually maybe like we have hidden and then all this crazy Daisy UI thingies we specify only then. We don't need them till then. Is 4XL correct? Maybe 3XL is better. Yeah, they do that. So 4XL is correct. So on big desktops, on big screens, you do get all the links, great, but they hide when the screen becomes, when the viewport is not wide enough to display them all. And conversely, maybe 3XL is going to be fine because we should also be hiding this. So on at 3XL, just make this hidden. Let's have a quick look at that. Does 3XL work? Not really. So 4XL. So big screens, you get all the links. When it starts getting a bit too tight, then you get the hamburger menu, and the idea is you click it and then you see the links somewhere else. HZP in the chat as well. Great to see you. I have a link in the description of an older video that where I saw this effect as well. Like I tried to explain it for 2024 in the future now. But I really like this. Like we'll be talking a lot about the vanilla HTML elements and CSS. But let's face it, like cool animations are amazing. Like they add like an extra whimsy to your app. So it's like a huge thing. How cool this effect looks is quite important for this to work. We have this. We have this effect. How do we actually show the rest of our links when it's in the X position? And that's where some styling comes in yet again. And our header has that specific checkbox, which maybe we want to give it like a specific ID. I guess now it does happen that it's like in 2 places, so that's a bit naughty, to be honest. But that's just for an example. Anyway, just for I'm just trying to think. Just to make sure the example is correct. Let's give a class here. Or maybe not. Still thinking about it. In my header, I'm only showing these things in a specific breakpoint. Great. I guess on the small breakpoint, I want to show even more links. So let's get these guys out. And maybe we have like an extra section here of even more nav. But now, let's give it no classes whatsoever. Kind of looks like this. Sure. So all of this, we do want it to be sticky. Maybe not navbar. Yeah, I think we're getting somewhere. So our navbar, maybe we can put it all inside a nav component. Maybe not. Maybe the header has 2 sections. Right, I'm getting there, just figuring it out on the fly. And all of these guys get put in one section. And this is the one that has these guys, the navbar class. All right, getting there. And then this is another section. This is going to be the collapsible section that only appears sometimes. So all of these links, it should still work, should only appear sometimes. All right. And let's give it a class of collapsible. And we can style it better later, like more links. We can add separators and stuff, but the basic idea is that we only want this to appear when this is open. So this collapsible class, we can target it. So we could say that if the header has a checked input, then the collapsible gets a display block. Because by default, the collapsible should be display none. So let's see if that works. Not quite. Because it's checked, not check. Not checkmate. Checkmate, baby. All right, so when the input is checked, then the header expands. But then you're like, Johnny, this is lame. Like this is not expanding nicely. Well, this is where you can put your imagination at play and do whatever you want with how this appears. You can define an animation that makes this expand and fly in and do something of the sort the moment it gets switched from display none to display block. So let's style it a bit better and see what happens. And maybe the header, let's make like background color secondary for now, just to see this. See the same thing twice. Does this do nothing? All right, so just to make it more obvious for this example, then you saw the rest of the items and we can make them look a bit nicer. By having like a separator here and there. Maybe it has like flex call. Actually here, it's where we do this, right? Flex direction. all these things. Cap 4. We can still use Tailwind here. Really want to. And we can add a nice little separator. Like yet another burger here. Just divider. That's what I'm looking for. So here, I always get into the weeds with the styling, but it's fun, isn't it? The real thing. Expected this to look a bit different. Full width. Does nothing. How does it work here? This should be applying some sort of class. And this should be full as well. Maybe. Just trying to figure out why this is not full width. So this section is full width, the nav is not full width. Right, we kind of got there. I think that we don't need the full width on this one anymore. And does this one have a better color? Maybe, not really. So. Even the contact should be there, I guess. So this list should also be flex call item center, I believe. Gap 2 or something like that. Looks alright. Looks decent, but it doesn't fly in. How do we make it fly in? I guess that's the question. Have we set up a flying animation with Tailwind already? I think it's likely. We haven't. We have not. And so let's do that. Let's try to steal one of their examples here of adding our own custom animation by adding some keyframes, which we could be adding here in the CSS as well. But flying in is... should we actually make it happen here? Let's do it. So yeah. Let's add some keyframes actually. Let's call this fly in. Have applied keyframes for the navigation as well. So this is what I was trying to think about, like this whole fade out and slide, and I thought we specified something like this, but not quite. So what we want is actually from opacity 0 and translate y here. Will it go to 100 by itself? Who knows? But we want to apply this animation to the collapsible. Let's see what happens there. Kind of goes in. I think to make the menu comes in, but like the background, the whole header expands, and there are some tricks to make that happen. There are some tricks to make that happen, he says. One of them. What if we make it position absolute? Alright, there we go. So now the background to be the same as the sticky header, I guess. To apply the same things. Not too bad, not too good, not too crazy. Maybe let's make it have this color. Ooh, doesn't look nice actually. Doesn't look too great, but maybe you get the idea. That's why we're using stuff like this UI, because I'm not a designer and I can't be here forever trying to make a good effect. I guess if this were 50 again, and we had yet another element in between, it takes the whole space of this. Maybe like a 4. Apply with 1. Maybe better. Doesn't really matter. Like it feels like a thing I should do offline, and we can have like an overlay. That's what I was thinking about, this overlay, I guess. So maybe viewport width and viewport height. Let's see, it's red for this. Does that do anything? Not really, because apply is not a real thing, and this is not a real thing. Is VW not a real thing? I guess not. A 100 viewport height is what I'm thinking. Screen, of course. So screen and screen. This is the thing it doesn't like. And the collapsible Doesn't the content for it appear? But doesn't it like? Oh, Z1 is not a real thing. Z10 is a thing. Okay. So something appears like. But it should be below the other one. Stuck in index problems. And this could actually be a button. So if you manage to click it, then it dismisses the input. Or it could be like a label or something to that effect. But it should be below the other one. Yeah, it is below. Doesn't look that nice. Oh well, again, like that's something to do offline. The basic idea is you can do this like so, and it will only appear according to this, how big your screen is. And you can still use it to navigate as normal. This is kind of crazy. Okay, I'll have it not plain just to have something like workable for now. But I promise after the stream I will style it better than this. So what are we thinking? Like no absolute position was the thing. And none of these things. None of these things. That's this. The collapsible animation is the thing that we don't really like, but we can fix it. Right, kinda cool. Anything else we're missing here? Like the label is this big, the input is this, and you cannot see it. And the input is this. Fair enough. I think we stole some of the padding though. But we'll fix that somewhere else. So, kind of vanilla, definitely vanilla HTML and CSS. You can use the hand selector to see if the input is checked. I guess if there are more inputs in your header, we should talk about that. We could pass another class here and say, give it the menu toggle class and check if the header has a menu toggle that has an input checked. And you can see this working still. And this is a bit better, I suppose, in case you have other inputs or other hidden inputs in your header. Other checkboxes, if you don't have any other checkboxes, you don't really care. Now it will only look for the one that's inside your menu toggle. So that's one way to do it with some on-the-fly CSS. That's not the best, but you know, that's why we're learning this stuff. So you can do your own CSS and have it look as cool as you'd like. And that's why we work with libraries like this UI, because maybe they know more about design than I do. Maybe they have like more things that we can use. And we're gonna do the collapse with checkbox solution because this is essentially what we're doing. However, the way they've specified their classes they need the whole thing to be inside a container with a collapse class, which is fair enough. They need the input to be at the top level, I think, because then they look at sibling selectors. So the input has to be on the top level, which makes it a bit trickier. That's why we'll need to refactor some stuff. And we will be doing this effect, which should have a nice animation. And maybe we can steal some ideas from there. Cool. So did I already click this? Yeah. All right. So let's get going. So we want to go to our this example. Where are we on? I keep mentioning. We're on the vanilla example. Let's do the this UI collapsible example. Again, we have the same problem with the header. We may need to copy paste what we've done with header here, but we'll see. We'll definitely copy paste the animated burger checkbox because it will be similar here. So the collapsible, let's paste it here. Animated burger. I guess we will be working with a label, so I predict we won't have the input here, but we will still have a label. So the way this UI works, it seems like this input will need to be on the top level or on the sister level, a sibling level, as these other classes. So this checkbox needs to be on the same level as this, or maybe the top level child of this, from my experiments, which means we cannot have it inside our label. So let's see how we'll get around that problem. But maybe the cool stuff work, so maybe we can start from that. And we can still do like these things. So the Daisy UI collapsible way to do it. We're in here, it has a header. This header somehow, I guess, will be similar to the other header, so I can just steal that one yet again. But this one, it's going to be label, and we won't have any further keyframes and collapsible stuff yet. But what we'll be doing is that this will have the collapse class. Oh, it has rounded corners. Interesting. And collapse title. Interesting. But it won't be the title. It will be like everything. I hope it works like this. So this section will be the collapse title. And the other section, instead of the collapsible class that we made up, I think it's collapse content. Title and content, sure. And if we click, somehow, there's something funky with the clicking going on sometimes here. I don't know why. Right, clicking it doesn't make it expand because it does want the input to be on the top level. I can only imagine. And here, order radius none. Is that the real thing? It's not the real thing. It's not the real following class. border radius rounded none. All right, so it seems the collapse has applied probably some extra padding to this. And we can see the CSS. It is looking for a direct style that's either a checkbox or a radio. So that's the problem here. So if we did have an input here, doesn't matter if it had like a specific name or anything. But if we did have a checkbox input here, right, so collapse title must be making it so this hidden checkbox gets clicked and we get this situation. Interesting. I wonder how that gets achieved. What do they specify to make it so if you click on the collapse, maybe what they're actually doing is that this input gets some CSS to like stretch it all over the title, and therefore it's as big as the title, like invisible hidden input that actually does all of this. Kind of makes sense. So if we didn't have a collapse title, what happens with this checkbox? We do need a collapse title. The moment we click anything, it's fine. What else is collapse title? Add more padding. Hey Damien, how are you? Some time ago you wrote on the chat you have enough of JavaScript and TypeScript and you want to try Rails. And it's not for you, so you're back to Svelte. Great. And you're back to the streams. Amazing. It's great to have you here. Have a nice day as well. I hope Svelte revitalizes your love for JavaScript and TypeScript. It's definitely here to stay, not just Svelte, JavaScript and TypeScript. It will be here for a while. So you can never go wrong trying to build stuff with it. You can still build stuff with Rails for sure. Lots of successful stuff still being built, but I do think it had its heyday quite a few years ago. So yeah, here we are struggling with CSS once again. So the magic that Daisy UI is trying to do here is it wants to magically make this title click this input, so it styles this input. That's the first style of this container to be like super wide, but invisible. Yes, one problem with Svelte is lack of jobs, but the rest is superb. Yeah, so that's why I've started making my own jobs, and I just do like consultancy contracts, and I just ask people what type of app do you want, and it's never it's rarely I want a React app. They just want, you know, an AI suggestion summarizer app, and then I make it in Svelte and SvelteKit, and that's how I get Svelte jobs. Have the client not focus on the implementation details and just on what they want, the value that they want to add, and then you fulfill with SvelteKit. You're free to fulfill as you wish. And I have found in the past year I do more SvelteKit than Next.js. Well, maybe the last time you were in the streams, I was probably doing more Next.js than SvelteKit for these sorts of contracts. Now it's turning around, but I can see more Svelte subs popping up. Will it reach React levels? I don't know, but it's definitely on the up. I'm sure you'll be able to see some jobs popping up as well. And again, do my trick, just build stuff in SvelteKit and they will come. Like, don't ask how to build them, don't ask the stack to use. Use the one that makes you happiest. Right. So about this, we have the other problem that we click this, like even if even if this was acceptable, like the design here was acceptable, our input, our awesome hamburger menu animation is not playing when it's expanded. So we'll definitely need to change that somehow. And how would we do it? I think the easy way to do it is to give this maybe an ID. You'll probably just have the one. If we were to do it the Daisy UI style, I guess we'll be finding it like this. So maybe let's do that. Feels a bit crazy, but that's what we'll actually do. Animated burger label. So this one doesn't have a checkbox anymore. So how would we get it into the second position? We'll be checking for something that's outside this component. Therefore, we're going to use the global selector. We're going to find the collapse class and check the input there. Which I think we can use like this. So has direct child and input. That's checked. Maybe we can just do that, I guess, instead of what we were doing before. So I think this will make it look for direct child in here. And then go into this SVG, so no global anymore, and do the same tricks. It works. So yeah, some things with the padding that makes this look horrible. We definitely need to hide the contact as well, somewhere there. And it bounces a bit up and down, but you know, kind of works. And the styles that they add for the accordion is what I will be looking for as well, and see what they do. Like, do they animate? Like, do they scale from 0 to 1? That's probably what they're doing. Not sure. So what do they do? Mean height 0. Yeah, quite a few things they have, but not like that many. Can you animate on height nowadays? It looks like it. They animate the padding. Wow. I wouldn't have guessed that. So that's something that I will try to steal for the other example. The bounce. Kinda like the bounce, to be honest. Right. So here, why does this have like insane padding? Maybe this will make it have it less. And yeah, more usable. Toink, toink, toink. Like you can say that this is a feature, like, you know, the bounciness. Maybe it looks nice. And also because this is an accordion, it makes the whole of your site go down. So maybe not what you're expecting. And also anywhere you tap, everything else is useless. So you can't actually use this. Whoops. I take it back. It's all unusable. Can I add like random items here? Because I only want this collapse title to be the hamburger menu at this point. Right? So what else do they do? Do they check for direct children? I don't think so. Yeah, so collapse title can be nested somewhere. All right, maybe we have a chance. So if I don't put collapse title here, not great, not too promising. Yeah, doesn't quite work, unfortunately. So putting the collapse title here, everything else is still not hidden. I don't know why. Oh well, that's another thing that I will leave as here's like the basic idea of how you do it, and then I'll need to go offline or revisit this later to see how to actually make it work. It's just giving you some options. We need to get to more realistic ones. Maybe that's why the next part is going to be Svelte 5, because instead of looking at classes and all of that with vanilla HTML and CSS, what do you want? You just want like a store or reactive state or something like that. Something that can tell you, is this open or is it not? And then use Svelte transitions, for example. This could make things easier. So that's probably what we'll do next. So let's claim that we kind of did something, like we showed the way to do it. And then let the PM or the product owner say that, did you fulfill the spec? I don't know. And move on to the Svelte 5 stuff. So, problem is the same, too many links here on the Svelte 5 runes part, which is here. And I'm gonna take the animated burger checkbox again. And have it be stateful. Do we even need the checkbox here? Not sure. Maybe just a button. Would we want the input to be visible? Also we could have made this just a hidden input, couldn't we? Hidden instead of display hidden. Come on, Johnny, don't need this. Just do this. So our first example, I guess the vanilla one. Still works better than ever, just a hidden input. Yeah, not bad, kind of like this. Right, so this one, animated burger runes, let's call it runes, it's cooler. And let's copy this header wholesale yet again. Runes, not rubes, not room, runes. Right, so we have this guy, and we won't be doing the fly-in stuff, I guess. Not vanilla CSS stuff. And let's get in there. We're here, okay. Oh. And we only want this section, the collapsible, the formerly collapsible section, to appear conditionally. And we'll make it happen. So this still works, it's just that it does nothing. And I guess the idea is that we want access to the state of the checkbox here, but not in like a CSS way, to not target it in CSS. We want reactive state. We want the reactive state to be exposed here. And that's how we'll conditionally render this section. So like let's say like if true, only then render this section. But this will actually be reactive state, so it can be true, it can be false. So actually, like Svelte 5, let's say, let's say let menu open is state false. So if something toggles this from true to false, then the menu will appear. How do we do that? Let's go into our runes animated burger and see how it make that happen. So I'm not sure for accessibility if it's good to have this be a checkbox or not. Actually, for accessibility, we should have some screen reader only like toggle theme text copy. We will be talking about this in the end, so we would have got it then. But until then, we may have wanted something else. If it's just a button that just says toggle theme, is that fine? Maybe. Is that what we want? Maybe. We'll see how we'll make that happen. So we're getting like a million props from parents, everything that a label can take. And if this is checked, then we transition to the open state. But actually, we could be doing it in a different way. This should be hidden, if it even exists. We could have some state here and say, let's open false, or could be like X checked, something like that. Burger or something else. And it's going to be state that starts with false. And then we could be giving it the open class only when this is true. So we don't need this. And instead of checking is the input checked or something, we could be saying when the open class is there, transform the SVG. So when this is true, open class applies and it looks like this. When the open state is false, then it looks like this. And we can bind checked to the open state. And then we can toggle it like so. But why would we do it like this? Besides maybe saying that the hash selector is not like the most performant thing in the world. Is it more performant than JavaScript? Probably. But I would need to see a benchmark. Like it's not going to be meaningfully more or less important, performant. We want to say that actually the props are the HTML attributes, but also I take an open prop, that's a boolean. And therefore, I want to pass a menu open here. And if I bind it, then it should reactively update as well. Maybe not. Maybe not. Am I using menu open here? Ah, damn. I thought this would work, but I guess not. I'm not using this anywhere, am I? What a guy. So this, get the open from here. Maybe call this checked. And it starts from the open that you give me. And that makes sense. Maybe not. How come it doesn't? It's right here. It's not intersection, right? Ah, this. Yeah, sorry. So now nothing happens. Pass in the open, we start with this. Do we derive it? Ah, this class is wrong. Whoops. So yeah, the toggling works, but the up ahead menu open is not quite working. Do we need to pass a store there? Is that the problem? My question is, how do we get access to the open state of this? Do we just export it? Maybe? That would be a bit crazy because you can render this many times. How do you know the open state of a specific component? I don't think that's the way out. Maybe you're like, Johnny, I thought that you were going to tell me how to do this. And yeah, that's what I thought too. I thought that binding these two things would make it just work. But clearly it doesn't. So we're passing the menu open here. And is there like a magic log that Svelte 5 with runes now has? I think so. Like inspect this thing. Let's inspect. Let's use more runes. Can I pass text to this so it's going to be like more obvious? Hope so. So menu open starts as false, check starts as false, then I click and just the component updates, not the header, which kind of makes sense. Have I been passing it to the... No, I haven't. I did bind it here. So yeah, binding it to the open thing here. That's why I'd expect this to change. Should it be like a side effect? But then... Can I do this? Fair enough. So let's say you need to give me an open here. That's going to be a boolean. And then just pass like open. Will that just make it work? Oh, yeah. So state only on the top level. It's just that you always need to pass in an open here. And if we weren't binding this, I guess it wouldn't work. Yeah. All right. And if we weren't binding this, Yeah, it also wouldn't work. Okay, so kind of makes sense. State only on one level. You don't do state and then state again. That was weird. Apologies for that. So we need to bring the state outside, and this component always needs an open prop, which is not what we did last time, like 300 years ago with Svelte 3 or 4 or whatever we had. Then we could say, if you don't give me some properties, then I'm going to initialize my own state and my own on clicks and stuff. But now we're saying you need to give me an open, which is fair enough. But then you're like, this still looks lame. So let's at the very least have this fly in this section when the menu is open. So let's look at Svelte transitions. Svelte fly, my favorite one. What an example. Right, how does it look? Not quite. So minus. Yeah, looks a bit better. Comes like from super far away. Not delay from opacity 0, I don't think we need this. But is this where we can say the position is absolute? Like the same we were trying before. Yeah, so it flies in like before, but then I will need to style it better as well. So let's steal those styles for now. Not sticky, not pop, don't think. Not this. Not most things. Yeah, a different way to do it. Does Z0 do anything? Maybe a shadow. Quite similar, these two guys. Not too bad. We need the height of the header to do the thing that I was thinking about, so I'm not going to do it. All right, so our way to do it with runes, taking advantage of this if statement and Svelte transitions is another way to do all of these animations without writing CSS. And also, this will only render these links in the page if the menu is open. So with the other ways, these are the elements are in your HTML, depending I guess on the CSS that you write. But in this way, Svelte only puts them in the HTML if the menu is open. So that's another consideration, that could make your tests a bit different as well. So if you have Playwright get something viral as you should, then it may be finding more links than you expect, because in some of the other examples, not the Svelte 5 one, not this one, they will be in the DOM, just hidden, just off screen. So it may tell you you have two links, like you only see one, but there are two of these links. So which one do you really mean? So that's something to consider there. But yeah, thing looks cool. Cool enough. And maybe ease out. We're doing ease out everywhere. Nah. Keep that one. It's fine. It's fine. So, Svelte 5 with runes. Now, how do we do it as the Daisy UI drawer? So this is my favorite one for now. It's the one that we're using here. Also has this background animation, background thing that you can click anywhere. It just looks better, to be honest. More space for your links, more clickable, nicer. So how do we refactor for that one? Let's see. Let's finish this inspect thing. No more logs. And go to the Daisy UI drawer. Which would be quite different, I think. Let's see how Daisy UI does it. Once again, so we've done this. Maybe we'll use this one. Nah, no, we won't. Let's open the drawer component. Looks like this. They have a few different versions. Opens to the left. Opens to the right. In this case, they only show it on smaller screens. Something I would suggest is that in Tailwind, you are able to like drag and drop this, sorry, not drag and drop, resize this. You can click on the side of any container, so you can easily see it how it looks in smaller versions, in smaller screens, without having to resize your whole window. But you know, it's easy enough to resize things. It's not that tough. So this is the example kinda that we want to pick, and again they have like a whole container which needs the drawer class, and we are adding the drawer end class as well to have it open from the right. It has a hidden input as well, which I guess becomes hidden from the drawer toggle class, and then it has the main content that you want. And then it has all the aside sidebar content that you want to have. So the good thing about this that wasn't in the collapsible part that makes me confident that this works, besides that I did it and it does work, is that they don't explicitly say you have like a title of the collapsible and then the rest of the content of the collapsible. They have a category of all the content that you want. And your sidebar separately. So this can be anything. All your website will be inside here. Most of your website will be here. And on the side will be the drawer. So this can work no matter what, but you still need to have the input straight one level deep from the drawer. So sadly, we cannot use again the animated burger we created in the start, which has a nested input in it, because it wouldn't be on the top level. We want our burger toggle to be in here in the drawer content, and the styling, this UI styling, will not look that deep. But you can take inspiration from this and have your thing look that deep if you want. Right. So let's see what we got here once again. We're in the drawer example, And I guess we'll be picking the label. This needs a 4 for that other input that we had. We didn't need it. I'm gonna expand this shortly. But for the drawer, let's put this animated burger label. And I guess we can see how my header is amended on the main website. Just copy that one. Or maybe use the animated burger. I don't know what you would find useful if you were to see the code. If you want me to use something that's on the main website. The main thing is that my animated burger, because it works with Daisy UI, the big thing is that the label here has a 4, which tells it that it needs to target the input that has an ID of toggle drawer. You won't be able to do it with a class. You can only do it like this. So there's going to be one element, one input in the page that has the ID of toggle drawer, and this animated hamburger is exactly for that. And the way it goes to the X state is it checks if in your whole HTML, so anywhere in your app, global space, not scope CSS, global CSS, does anywhere on your HTML have a toggle drawer element which is checked. So at least because this is like an ID selector, I think this should be fast enough. And if so, then this SVG goes into the transformed position that we've been doing. That's how this works. So I guess that's how I'll make it work here as well. So maybe in the drawer one, I won't be doing this, and I won't be doing this different header. Can you ask a thing related to web-based and Svelte? Yeah, of course, always. So I'm actually gonna bring in the header, the main website here. I'll try harder here. So now we have this header. And we want to wrap the rest of the page more in line with what Daisy UI wants us to do. So let's see. If we just had this, just for a moment, to look like this, you press this, it opens the drawer. Great. But we don't exactly want that. Page content here, this is where they want us to have our whole website. So this is where I'm going to put our whole website. So that kind of works. But they also wanted us to have something to click, in this case, to open the drawer, like a button. That has the label for this input. And we said that the way our current animated hamburger works, it looks for a toggle menu, I think. Is that what we said? It looks for a toggle drawer. So now, if I press, I should be getting this side nav, which is like this. But I also have the side nav prepared. So here I can have our nice side nav. Then you can see it looking quite nice indeed. And I guess this needs like a bit more z-index, maximum z-index. Maybe just a bit less. And this drawer overlay thing, we also want this to target the checkbox, the hidden checkbox. So now when you click here, it disappears. And since this is the overlay, I think we can, well, first let's expand this because it doesn't look too great. So the way to expand this, I guess, is to make this a flex call justify between. Make it grow. Space between. Items between. Justify between feels nice. It's just that this isn't growing. H full. Is this the thing that should be full? Probably. Grow. Yeah. All right. So this looks kind of fine now. Great. So we have the nice side nav. We get back to the top when we click this. Don't know why it doesn't happen on the other page. Like I can't debug this somehow. But something that the main page doesn't have is this blur effect that some people like. So let's see if we can do that. I think we have that effect, like this background blur effect here, backdrop blur. So let's see if we can do it. So this label, which is our overlay and hits the checkbox and unchecks it. If we were to give it a backdrop blur, but only when it's visible, like it kind of looks good. How to do it only when it's visible? Like we can look for this. Like, is the drawer toggle? Is this guy checked? Yeah, I'm not going to do it now. You can check a sibling with the tailwind by giving it like another class as well. But I don't think you can animate backdrop blur like that, so we can do it with special styles. We'll see. Maybe we'll do it. Looks kind of nice. But of course, I do think a big part of what sells this design is the side nav. I think I designed this nicer than in other examples, so it looks cool. Looks pretty cool. Some of this be hidden. I guess so. All right. So question. So a base in Svelte question. You have a profile table with username and avatar URL, but you want to create it to be only once and keep the data in a store. I thought about layout.server, but I don't know how to not query in every page load. So store, I think you mean like Svelte store, right? But you don't need to keep it there. The thing is, you are the color palette looks awesome. Yeah, it's rare that I do like it on both light and dark mode. I don't know, maybe you don't like the light mode one. And I was thinking of changing it from the Paulina Poppers one just to make the difference. But I ended up really liking this one. I like the earth tones. Anyway, back to Supabase stuff. You're on the right track with layout.server. That's what you should do, because it's not going to happen on every page load. Layout.server will not rerun on every page load. You'll be switching the client-side router and only be rerunning the page server load. So you got a different page, it's going to be running those. Are they run every time? Am I making this up? Not sure. Maybe I am making this up. Let's see. Let's test it out. Let's test it out live. Do I have any server files here? Maybe not. However, it's not the worst thing if it happens on every page load, because on every page load, I imagine you'll want to keep checking whether the user is still logged in or whether they're logged in. So you need to make a database check anyway. So I don't think it's going to be that big of a performance optimization to not fetch it every time. Right. So we have this main layout, I guess. Let's go back home here. And let's say that here, and this isn't specifically Supabase question. This can be anything. So now that we've done the CSS stuff, let's talk a little bit of backend. So Svelte has this thing about loading data. And we're talking about layout of server. And the thing is, when does this rerun? The UI components don't re-render as you navigate within the website. So I'm thinking that the layout load methods don't rerun as you navigate throughout, but we'll find out. So here we want to export a load method. It's going to be a layout server load. And let's say that it's just with this, and then you return its data demo or user avatar URL, whatever. And the question is, does this run every time? So we visit this page, this runs, let's see, this runs once, like when I hot reload, just once. User visits, runs once. Then they click a link, doesn't run again. Click another link, doesn't run again. So my suspicion should be correct, so long as the layout .server file is in a level that's above the page that you're rendering, it's not gonna run again. So this one, as the root layout.server file, it will run the first time the user goes to your website, and then switching the client-side router, it will never run again. If it was in the burgers, if we had a layout.server here, which we don't, let's make this happen as well. Let's say burger layout loads here, like something else. Burger data. So you're on the core main page, plonk. Just the layout loads. We're here. You navigate to one of the burger subpages. Just the burger layout loads, not the layout. It doesn't run again. And you navigate to another one of the burger pages. That doesn't run again either. But then you go back home. Oh no, I cannot go home. You go to the contact page. I should use like a different menu. So nothing runs yet again. We're still within a burger page. And then you go to the home page and nothing runs yet again. So you've switched to the client side router. Nothing else will ever run. But then when you go back to the burger page, because you were somewhere else before, then the server load method will run again. So does that make sense? You go to the home page, the layout loads. This root layout shouldn't rerun no matter how much you navigate within your site. Then you go to the sub layout.server.ts in the burger stuff, and that's gonna run once. So long as you are in these subroutes, it will not run again. But then if you exit out and you go back to the root, then and you go back in, then it's gonna run again. And even that you can optimize by doing stuff with headers as always. But of course, custom validation is one of the two biggest problems in engineering, so watch out for that. Something else to keep in mind as well is that this is happening because we have server load methods and we have switched to the client-side router after we first finished rendering the page. After the first load, there are what's called universal load methods. So if it was a layout.ts, then that will in fact be running. So read the section. And that's something that has changed. The naming has changed a lot in like the past year. I think the functionality is a bit different than how it used to be, but it has been stable for a while now, so you should be fine. So yeah, and again, that's not just a Supabase or authentication question. This is just a general good to know SvelteKit question about how the load methods are functioning, and it could be something we get deeper into the next episode, in the next stream on Friday, because most likely we'll finally go into talking to databases again, so we'll be seeing those things firsthand. So we're kind of finished with this portfolio now that people can click and navigate. Well, maybe we will extend it a little bit and do the email capture to a Google spreadsheet and then email capture to a database, and that's our aim to working with databases. Or maybe we'll go straight into a different sort of app that needs a database to begin with. We'll see. Let me know either in comments or Discord or somewhere else what you'd like to see. I always have a plan, but also take inspiration from what you want me to do. So, and yeah, ask for the avatar URL in layout server.ts, the root one. Or I guess if you have authenticated routes, if you have a different group for authenticated users, you could also be asking for it there. And that should work well enough for you. Right, so Friday, maybe we'll be extending this app just to do the email capture, like have something at the end that says subscribe to my newsletter, or subscribe and I'll let you know when I do like open events. I don't know, something like that. Maybe the client wants this. We'll see. And that's our end to use more server stuff, do more backend API calls, and eventually talk to a database. Thank you for participating in the chat and your questions. As always, I want to show things that people want to know, or you know, they are trying to find a solution. I love to help with solutionizing. It's fun for me to solve real problems that real people have. I guess that's what I'm trying to say. Right, so this is it. The main thing for today, the cool animation you can click around and find. I have an older video that I've done, so we've shown how to do the same thing with Svelte 5, even if you don't want to do it with labels and you just want to do a button like I did in the video, it's going to be the same thing. So the important thing to remember, which we only found out live, so let's have a look at that, because that was a bit of the point of the episode, is you just expose like the open prop or something like that. You don't need to have your own state in this component as well. And then you just make sure to bind it into the correct elements. We could just be using it to dynamically add the open class, and this is a button and you don't need to have an input to bind it in. But where you do use your animated burger, that's where you'd need to be binding the open variable. All right, this is gonna be it for today. Always fun to do styling stuff, always gets me going, always gets me spending more time doing it. I'll be clicking this for hours. This is mesmerizing. Have a lovely rest of the week. I'll catch you all on Friday. Goodbye.